When I entered the university, I spent my first semester committed to books. Everything was this government-sponsored student. So I didn't see any reason as to why I would fail to perform. We are entitled, of course, to some small money allowances, which we had to use to pay our accommodation. But time passes, we're not receiving any coin. We had, of course, associations which were charged of, which are established to protect our rights as government students and advocate them. So I used to go and attend the meetings, but what was challenging, I continued going there from that time when we were demanding our allowances. So all our hopes were in those guys to fight for us. But what was very challenging is that if you had not paid any single coin to that association, those guys would not listen to your problems. So they had the principle, those who don't pay money to the association, we don't listen to them. Now time comes, continuous passes, we're not receiving our allowances. So we reached to the leaders by then. There was a duly president. This guy tasks us to mobilize 70 students that will now lead us to go and demand for our allowances. Of course, we did not know how to control ourselves. Now we had to burst on these guys. We locked the doors, everything. We're telling these guys we're not moving out. We sat and reflected. I was asking myself, now me, I'm just asking money for food and accommodation. But I have housemates who were in private, who had to hustle to get tuition, who had to hustle to get money for accommodation, who had to hustle to get money for food. So that's when I got a sense that if we are crying, those were just crocodile tears, but there were people who were crying real tears. So we said, no, can't we now see the way how we can do something substantial about this? So that's when we evolved to start forming groups. And we established it to defend the rights of the common student. That's how we used to identify ourselves. But in those earlier days, I wasn't introduced to nonviolence. The only thing I got exposed to was activism. And I just knew the definition that activism is campaigning for social change. So for us now, whenever we would see that there is a need for change, we would say we are doing activism. And we would, of course, coerce fellow students, sometimes even beat them if we want them to join us. But then whenever we sit, we are asking, why aren't people interested in our causes? For us, we saw we are fighting for a good thing, but we are wondering, why are people not joining us? So when we read much about what Solidarity was doing and some friends, that's when we got the context of non-violence. So we asked ourselves, what is this non-violence? We started now watching videos, of course reading about it. Now we realized that these were means that would help us not to use the force we are using. So we applied that. We spent over 1 month mobilizing, like writing messages, dropping flyers, doing what and everything. So now the day of the protest reaches. We are 12 people. We had to start the strike in the usual ways of beating and everything, but we said, no, this time around we're not going to beat the students. Let's go and talk to them and we see what will happen. So whenever we move to the class and we talk to the students, everyone almost was buying into what we are doing. So they joined us to move. And then we realized we can even do it without using force. So that's when I evolved myself much into non-violence. That's how my knowledge expanded. I used it to share with the members who were around me. And we were able to converge over 2,000 students to make a sit-in at the main building. So I think that was one of the famous activities, and everyone was wondering how did we manage to keep the discipline and everything. So, but I'm now interested in myself much in that. And of course we did other mild activities. There is a time we made a walk-in at the Ministry of Education, using all that knowledge, fighting. In the COVID now, that was the COVID period, fighting for the opening of schools, also vaccination of the students and everything. So the spirit now picked up and kept on growing.